Hello and welcome to Transform Tuesday, the 2021 series. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Products and Services here at Alpha Software, and I'm pleased to be joined by Sarah Mitchell, our Head of Documentation. In just a moment, I'll be able to share my screen. System's been a little bit slow. What we're going to talk about today is a revisit of a topic that we had done back in June, actually June 23rd to be specific, 2020, and it had to do with using Transform to control real-world devices. In this case, it was a lamp that could change different colors. Now, I've had a couple questions over the few weeks about Zapier, and I had a question about IoT, and I said, you know what, it's time we went back over this one again, so I thought that would be good to go over. Let me just, you know what, I think we could just jump into it right now. Let me pop into sharing. And let me show you what we've got. You can ask questions, of course, by typing them into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. And remember, we're always here at tfservice, as in Transform Service, at alphasoftware.com. So let's get cracking. And so here's the scenario that I want to imagine. Now, you know that Transform can be used for sending out emails. You can use it for sending out SMS. Once records are entered, they can go into databases and triggers and all that. But what if we wanted to do something that was much more sort of real world? In this case, activating a light or not. This might be helpful if you're in a place where it's not practical maybe for you to have technology on you. Maybe you're on a factory floor and you need to look up at a light bulb to see whether or not something is the case. Or maybe you want to have a light at some remote location which indicates something when some data has been submitted that's above or below a certain value. You know, maybe you want to have it as a type of warning. Maybe you want to reassure people that, oh, the light's green, it shows that everything is running properly. So to do that, and there are lots of different ways to do that, the example I'm using today is using the Philips Hue system. Now, with the Philips Hue system, what we're going to do today is we're going to just basically build a pretty simple transform form, and then we're going to submit the color of the light, or whether or not we want it on or off, into the application. That's going to go up to Transform Central, and then we're going to use Zapier, a technology I haven't talked about in a while, but is still up and running and fully integrated with Alpha Transform. And that's going to then in turn talk to Philips, and then Philips is going to talk to one of these Internet of Things bridges in my house, which then talks to the light bulb. Seems like a lot of steps, but it all works. It's all pretty easy to put together, and it seems to work fairly reliably. So before we go much further, let's talk about one key critical thing about anything that has to do with Internet of Things, and that is security. So in the old days, not that old days, in fact, you can still get light bulbs, for example, that you can connect up to your Wi-Fi network. Now, there's a certain danger in this, in that those bulbs themselves now have things like your internet password to your Wi-Fi. And it has turned out in the past that when the bulbs had burnt out or been discarded, that people were actually able to dumpster dive and get into networks and do all kinds of damage. So what Philips has done, and what's actually a good sort of model, is they don't let the light bulbs actually have any intelligence whatsoever. All that belongs here in this bridge. So what happens basically is you connect the bridge, you hardwire this to your network. That's another security feature, does not work off Wi-Fi, must be plugged in. And then it talks to a server, a Philips server that's attached to your account using standard protocols. And then once it gets a signal, it's familiar with the light bulbs that are on your network, not because they're connected to Wi-Fi, but because they're using a different type of communication. I think it's Zigbee under the covers, but I'm not exactly sure, nor is it terribly important. So as they explained it, Philips uses an industry standard encryption and authentication techniques to make sure that unauthorized users can't get to your products and control your lights and things like that, which is a very good thing. And they have a couple of safeguards that you attach. For example, by default, you're not allowed to communicate to your system on an IP address that's outside of the one that the hub is connected to. So if the hub and say your phone are on different connections, it won't work. However, you can override that, and that's what I've done in today's example, because I'm actually running on 2 networks here in my house today that are on separate internet connections. All right, so our example today is going to be putting together a really simple form called warning light. And you'll see if I click red and I submit it, it'll make me turn red. If I click blue, it makes me turn blue, and I can also shut off the light altogether. So it's a very, very simple, sort of not practical example. In real life, probably what you would have behind the scenes is some sort of TPL script, which maybe looked at various factors and then decided what you should do with the lights, and then have that automatically get submitted when you submit the data. But let me show you how I put this all together. So I'm going to go first into my Transform account so I can show you my form. And my form is super easy, not as easy as last week, which I think was one field. Today is, oh no, that was the invoice one. But today it's just 2 fields. So I have or 2 controls. I have a button list, which has the following options: red, blue, and off, as you can see here. And then I have a change status button, which lets me close it. And when you change status, it also will upload this to the Transform server. So it's all in one step. And I've also asked that form not appear on my phone anymore so that it doesn't clutter up my phone. So I've checked the yes button to change form instance so that it will not download to filler. Okay, hopefully you're all with me so far. So let me show you what that form looks like actually on my phone. I'm going to go ahead and open up Air Server, and we'll see what we've got. Oops. There we go. So there is my light right there. And it says, there's my form, I should say, right there. And right now, in fact, I'm going to turn on the camera. Something I don't normally do. Hopefully you can see me here. Yep. And you'll see I've got kind of a bluish tinge to me if I'm getting close to that light. But I want to change that now to red. So to do that, I'm going to click the red button, and I'm going to click Submit, and up it goes. So the first step on its journey is that it goes up to Transform. And once it's in Transform, it's just basically saved as a record. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, we have our Zapier service. I'm actually going to just move this out of the way so I can show you that, which polls my Transform account every so often to make sure that, to see if a new record has been added. Now, I think it's a 5-minute delay on this particular account that I'm using. Free accounts are 15-minute delay, but when you're doing testing, that's kind of a pain. So you can actually log into this control panel here in Zapier. And I didn't actually, before I even hit run, and what you can do is hit run. I didn't have to hit run. It looks like it was time for it to change anyway, which is great. So as you can see, it actually did do it automatically. But if I'm going to go and add, say, another blank form or another warning light form, add blank, and go down to warning light, and I'm going to say this time let's just turn it off. So I'm going to hit submit. Okay. 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 And I'll move my phone out of the way again. Great. So I can go here and I can click run. And you'll see what it's doing is it's looking for a form. It found it. And then it turned off the light as I wanted it to, which is cool. All right. So let's dive in and take a look at how this Zap was set up, since I've shown you how the form was set up. I'm going to shut off the camera because we don't need that. Okay, so here we are in Zapier. And for those, let me go back to the PowerPoint. Zapier bills itself as probably the easiest way to automate workflows. And it really is a really, really simple way. We integrated this early on with Alpha Transform because we knew that Transform out of the gate may not have had all of the features that we wanted to have in it. But once you connect Zapier to it, you could do all kinds of amazing things. For example, before we could send out SMS messages, which you can now do natively from Transform, we use Zapier to do that. We've also used Zapier to send emails. Again, you can do that natively through Transform. But some things that you can't do natively through Transform, for example, are connect to a spreadsheet and start filling in rows, for example, on a Google Docs sheet. And there's about 1,000 other types of things that you can connect with Zapier. So think Salesforce, SAP, all kinds of things that you can connect. In this case, Philips Hue was one of the ones that was built into Zapier. So I'm going to go into my Zapier account, and I'm going to show you how I built this account. What I did was I went ahead and I clicked the Make a Zap button. And so it starts out asking, well, what has to happen before this workflow is kicked off? So there's all kinds of different apps. These are popular apps. I could say show all of the apps, built-in apps. These are the ones that are built by Zapier. And the ones that I've used recently appear here in My Apps, but you can also search for them here. So for example, if you don't have Transform listed, you could just type in Transform, and there it is. We are one of the approved providers of Zapier. So now that Zapier is in, I have one, I want to trigger when a new form is submitted. It's the only action actually that you can do, so there's not much choices here. And I'm going to hit continue. And that's going to ask me which account. And I'm going to use the account that I've set up previously. If I hadn't set one up previously, all I'd have to do is click on this button here, and it will take you into, that's technical details. So you could take me into the connections part of Zapier, and I could paste in an API key. Let's see if I should do that. Let's try that. I'm going to say edit accounts, just so I can show you what that looks like. I've actually connected it a couple of times before, so let's add yet another one. So we're going to connect to Transform. All right. And now what it wants me to do is it wants me to paste in an API key. And the API key is actually required to have all, because you can use Zapier to do reading and writing. I suspect if you just set it to read, it would probably also work fine in this case. And that might be the thing to do, because there's no point in giving more permissions than you need to. For those of you who are unfamiliar with where to get the API key in Transform, it's actually pretty simple. It's right up here on this Home tab. You just simply go down to Get API Key. That's mine. I'm changing it. Don't steal it. And I could click here. If this one was blank, I could click here, or I could click a different type. And then I click the Get API Key, and it appears up here. And so I had done that earlier. Delete that out. And then all I would do is I would put that into my into that dialog box in Zapier. I think it launched it in a new window, though. Actually, I did. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel it out of there. Okay. Oops. So here we are. As the trigger event, what's going to trigger it? Well, what happens is when a new form is submitted to Transform, we want to trigger this action. So the account that I want to use is this one. And then I'm going to continue. And then the form that I want to use is the one that I built before, and it's called like warning light or something like that. Warning light, there it is. And I choose that. And now I'm going to hit continue. It says test my trigger. All right, let's see what happens. This is great. It says we found a form. And here's the form. Here's all the metadata. We've been over that before. But here, take a look. This is one of my fields. It's called color. If you remember, that could be red, blue, or off. In this case, it was set to off. That was the last one we just set it to. So hey, that looks great. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually add in, the second thing is I'm going to add in a path. This is a relatively new feature from Zapier, but it's extremely helpful. So a path lets you conditionally do one of a couple of different options. I think most of you here are technical enough to be familiar with if-then kind of situation. So this is path A, and what I will do in path A is I'll edit it, and I'll give it a name, and I'm going to say red. That will be the red path. And then it's going to say, okay, well, when do I go down the red path? Only choose it if, now I'm going to choose my fields. Now here I only see 4 fields, so I have to click Show All Options, and I'm going to choose the color field. So if the color field contains the word red, which it doesn't, okay, then off it will have gone. And it actually fetched the first record, which had red in it, so that's why it did say it had red in it. Then the next thing I want to do is I want to hook up my Philips Hue. So with the Philips Hue, that's pretty easy. You're allowed to do 2 things. You can either turn on or off the lights, or you can set a scene, which also means you could turn on a light. Now a scene lets you set your lights to particular colors that I've set up ahead of time. So I'm going to say set scene. I can hit continue. The first thing it's going to do is ask me for what's the bridge. That's that box that's plugged in and talks to all of my lights. So I'm going to choose that. And then I'm going to hit continue. And now it's going to say what room, and I'm going to say the alert lamp room. And what's seen? These are a whole bunch of ones that are built in, but I created this one called warning. All right. And should I turn on the light if it's not already on? Yes. I'm going to set true to that. I'm going to go ahead and continue. And I'm going to say test and continue. And probably should have had the camera on for that one. As you can see, I now have this evil red glow because it's in fact turned on my lights. All right. So let me show you how I built. So that was how I did the red path. But now let's say I want to do another path. I'm going to go down here and just from this drop down, I'm going to choose path B. And I'm going to call this one blue. I'm going to change its name. Oh, here it is. I'm going to change its name here, blue. And I'm going to continue. It's going to ask me for the rule. The rule is, show more options, if the color contains, I could have also said exactly match, but contains is fine. Contains blue. That's it. And it said it wouldn't have continued. That's because it thinks it's set to red, and it is. And then what I want it to do is do this. I'm going to click edit. I'm going to go to Philips Hue again, set a scene, continue, choose my bridge, continue, choose my room, choose my scene, and this one's called blue. I call that the all clear. We'll give it the all clear sign. Okay. And if the lights aren't on, should I turn them on? The answer is yes. Yes, please. So let me see. I think it lets me test it now. So let me turn that on, and I'm going to go ahead and hit continue. And I'm going to say test and continue. Let's see. Oh, and sure enough, the light is now dimmed down to this blue color. Cool. So then finally, I need to add one more path to make this work. And I'm going to go back here to home. Actually, I think I could have done is close this is probably what I want to do. Exit paths, because I want to add one more. And you're allowed to add up to 3. And I'm going to edit it. This will be the off path. So we're just going to say off. Again, the filter condition will be based on the color field. All options color, choose a condition, contains, enter value off. I'm not sure if it's case sensitive. I'm going to go off lowercase. Blue. Okay. And then we're going to say, let's tell it what to do. And that's, of course, to turn the light off. Turn the lights on and off. Choose my bridge again. Continue. Desired state. Off. Rooms. That's the room. Do I want to transition? It could let you fade down if you wanted it to. Kind of a cool feature. I'm not going to do that. All right, let me turn on the camera one more time. I should be in a blue hue. I'm going to hit test and continue. We did it right. Yep, it went off. Cool. So that is that. It's really, really simple to put stuff together with Zapier. Let me just show you a couple of the other, actually more than a couple of the other applications that are available to you when you're using Zapier. So basically, to make this activated, all I'd have to do is turn this Zap on right now. And you're probably wondering, what does Zapier cost? It does cost something. If you're doing one of these more sophisticated ones where you've done paths and you've done multiple steps, you do need to buy a plan which goes for $19.99 a month. I'm right now just doing the trial, so I may cancel it before the end of it if I don't end up using it. But of course, you can do a lot more with Zapier than just turn on lights on and off. So let's go take a look at some of the other integrations that are here. Okay, so we've got Google Sheets, Gmail, Slack, Calendar. These are all the things that you could now integrate fairly easily with Transform just by doing a type of integration. For example, if you wanted to add something to a Google Calendar, once you had put it into an account, you could do that there. You could put things up on a Google Drive. I'm not sure how that would apply to Transform. Maybe it would. We have done examples before with Google Sheets, which were pretty useful. You can do Gmail if you choose to, but again, you can also do email straight out of the system as well. So that's that. Seems I'm on mute. Hey, thanks very much for joining us today. If you do have any questions, go ahead, type them into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. And if not, I'll see you next Tuesday, our next Transform Tuesday. Thanks very much. Take care and stay well. Bye-bye.